And welcome back. This is part 2 of The Girl, the Gator, and the Tanuki by Blame Your Fate.
My egg!
She saw the creature shaking a fist at the river.
Return my lunch this instant, you fiend!
That fiend was Gummy, who had taken advantage of the moment of neglect to grab the egg and jump in the river. He was now floating downstream with his prize. The Tanuki jumped in after him.
You are mine, little one! You hear me? Mine!
He shouted as he swiftly ran after Gummy, coming dangerously close to catching the little gator. Applebloom, who couldn't swim without her filly flippers, could only run alongside the river and watch. As she galloped, she felt a mixture of things. Worry that she might not get to Gummy first, exasperation at Gummy's third escape, and, just a little, relief that Gummy got the egg away from the Tanuki. Maybe the little guy wasn't so bad after all. Gummy likes the water. He liked it in all of its ways. The bubbly kind that the pink one went in, the purple kind that was yummy, and the kind in the big bowl that the pink one was always telling him to stay out of. But this kind, the kind that kept pushing him in his lunch, he didn't like.
I am the Tanuki! That egg is rightfully mine!
Yelled the brown thing from behind. As Gummy continued to be pushed along, he tumbled so that he was underwater and could see behind him. The brown thing was moving his legs in a weird way, and it made him get closer. Gummy tried waggling his legs. All that did was make him tumble again and be above water.
Gummy!
He heard the yellow one shout.
Get back here!
The brown thing was really close now.
Stay away from him!
The yellow one's voice was far away.
It has what belongs to me!
The brown thing sounded more growly than before.
It's not yours, it's the bird's!
The yellow one sounded less squeaky than before.
I stole it! It's mine!
Stealing doesn't make it yours, you stupid raccoon!
How dare you insult the Tanuki!
It sounded the growliest it's ever sounded.
Yeah, I do!
The yellow one said, stronger than Gummy had ever heard her speak. In that moment, she reminded the gator of the orange one with the brown on her head.
Why don't you get up here and do something about it?
Nice try, young one, but I know of a better way to punish you.
Gummy tumbled again and was face to face with those beady eyes.
I'll make this one part of my lunch.
The brown one moved all 4 of its legs and did a jump. In the water. Gummy thought that was pretty cool, even if that meant the brown thing was coming straight at him. It was hard to keep up with the floating gator. The area beside the river was sometimes clear, sometimes thick with trees. This left Applebloom having to be very aware, weaving around trunks and branches, all while keeping an eye on Gummy to make sure he didn't end up Tanuki food. The filly watched as the Tanuki sprang out of the water, diving at Gummy. Then, leaves. Another patch of trees blocked the scene from view. Applebloom's eyes darted ahead. The patch went on a while. She sprinted her fastest sprint. She had to get Gummy. But then what? She couldn't jump in after him, and even if she could, the Tanuki wouldn't let go without a fight. Gummy was doomed, all because she had to go and talk tough to the Tanuki. So much for being a big pony. No, it wasn't about that. It was about saving a life, maybe even 2. She had to do whatever she could. The trees cleared and the river was visible again. She could see that the Tanuki had bitten into something.
Yow!
That scream wasn't Gummy. Gummy was safe, floating along next to the Tanuki. It seemed that the so-called legendary creature had missed its lunge by a few inches. Instead, the Tanuki had bitten into something purple and scaly. Something long enough that as it rose up from the water, it was even taller than the trees. My tail! My lovely tail! Oh, what misfortune has befallen me! It had a long mouth and pointed teeth like a dragon, but it was thin and long like a snake. This would have been terrifying were it not for the creature carrying on like a crybaby. It looked down at its tail and squealed when it saw the Tanuki. Oh! Oh, what a disgusting creature! Get it off! Get it off! Get it off! It shook its tail crazily, causing large splashes. It wasn't long before the Tanuki was shaken off and was sent flying somewhere into the forest. The same happened to Gummy, who, still clamped onto his egg, was absent-mindedly launched into a place ahead of Applebloom. The filly wasted no time in dashing forward with all of her speed, through another patch of leaves, weaving around more branches, avoiding more roots. She came to a clearing, a grassy field, just as Gummy was about to land. Without thinking, she performed a feat that would have impressed even Scootaloo. At full speed, she jumped, turned in midair, and caught both the gator and the egg safely in her hooves. Holding the precious cargo close to her chest, she landed on her back, hard.
Oof!
She lay there for a while breathing, waiting for her back to stop hurting, before she picked her head up to check on Gummy. The pet looked back, blankly as usual, and chomped on the egg, which was still intact. She took him off her chest and set him down, then got up slowly.
You sure are a troublesome rascal, you know that?
She said to the gator, who replied by blinking.
but I guess you're all right.
He won't be all right for long.
Apple Bloom turned toward the voice. Standing there, dripping wet and looking very angry, was the Tanuki. He walked slowly toward Apple Bloom like a tiger stalking its prey.
Give me the little one.
There were no traces of the good-spirited, odd Tanuki the filly had met earlier. He was breathing heavy and his eyes were wild. Apple Bloom stood in front of Gummy, shielding him from the Tanuki.
I can't do that. It's my responsibility to take care of him.
I'm not playing. You want me to eat you as well?
He snarled.
You wouldn't.
Apple Bloom did her best to stand tall, even though her heart was beating like a drum.
The Tanuki does as he pleases.
He got down, preparing to pounce.
I never heard nothing about Tanuki eating ponies.
She didn't. Then again, she had never heard anything about Tanuki. But she stood fast, hoping her bluff would work.
There's a first time for everything, he snarled. Last chance. Give me the little one and the egg.
I can't.
She planted herself firmly on the ground. She would protect Gummy and the egg, even if it meant becoming Tanuki food.
Then you will pay for your foolishness, and remember, you met your end by the teeth of the Tanuki.
This was it. The Tanuki leaned into its rear legs. Apple Bloom closed her eyes. Just because she was brave enough to stand up to the Tanuki, that didn't mean that she was going to watch as he attacked her. But, even though this was the end, there was a strange peace. She felt that she had done the right thing. And she didn't even have Applejack around to tell her what that was. Applejack. Apple Bloom felt a tear go down her cheek as she thought of her sister. If only she could see her big sis one more time. If only she had a big pony to save her. Nothing happened. Was it supposed to take this long? Apple Bloom slowly opened her eyes. Before her stood the Tanuki, but its expression had changed. His beady eyes had become wide with fear.
What are you?
He gazed in fear at Apple Bloom. No, behind her. The filly noticed a shadow over her and turned to see what cast it. Behind her was a spooky face, which seemed eternally stuck in a ghastly grin.
Speak!
The Tanuki shouted, but the thing was silent.
The Tanuki is unafraid of you. Speak!
Begone! Bellowed a voice from behind the face. The mouth didn't move, but the voice was commanding and mysterious.
Yeah!
The Tanuki screamed and darted off, leaving Apple Bloom alone with the face. She stared into its empty eyes.
What are you?
When times are rough, and you are near your end, look behind you and find a friend. A hoof came and moved the face, revealing a familiar pony.
Zecora!
The filly ran to the zebra, who embraced her.
What are you doing here? And what is that?
She pointed with the hoof at the face. A mask, one believed to ward off danger. She held it up, letting Apple Bloom get a closer look. The scary face was only a carving, just another mask Zecora kept in her home. I came because I heard a stranger.
But how did you know I was in trouble?
Asked the filly as she looked back to check up on Gummy. He chewed on the egg, unaware of how close he had come to meeting his end. I happened to pass by, gathering herbs for stew. That I happened upon here was lucky for you. Zecora walked, and Apple Bloom picked up Gummy and followed. She wasn't even sure where they were going, but it was comforting to have an adult to follow.
Thanks, Zecora. I was in big trouble. I really did something stupid back there.
They went back into the cover of the trees, Zecora with a mask back on her face, and Apple Bloom with Gummy on hers. Zecora chuckled.
What?
To think for oneself is a child ill-behaved, but to stand up for others, now that is brave. Zecora kept her eyes forward towards their destination.
So I did the right thing?
Apple Bloom walked next to Zecora. Right, wrong, that is not for me to say, but someone was saved at the end of this day. Above the trees, the sky was orange. The sun was going down.
I don't get it,
said the confused filly, going over the day's events in her head.
I mean, I saved Gummy, but I took him from a wild animal, and that animal's food was another animal's little baby, and all this wouldn't have happened if I was more responsible in the first place. So what does that mean?
She continued to look up at Zecora for answers, but none were given. They walked until it was almost entirely dark, and they stood at the foot of her familiar tree. Apple Bloom looked up.
A nest!
Gummy had still made no progress on the egg, and appeared to have given up, being content to hold it in his mouth. Zecora looked up at him, then up at the nest. If meaning is what you always seek, disappointed you will be. What is right for you is right for you, and right for me is right for me. But one thing is true, just one thing. If happiness is your goal, be kind to others and listen well to every creature, tall dragon to tiny foal. Zecora looked at Apple Bloom and smiled. The filly often had trouble understanding the zebra's rhymes, but somehow she felt like she understood this time.
Now, young pony, I trust you know the way?
Yep, I can take it from here,
said the filly as she nodded.
Bye, Zecora, and thanks.
Then I bid you a good night and an even better day.
And with those words, Zecora disappeared into the trees. Apple Bloom looked up at the nest. Looking down at her was the bird from earlier, the mother. The young pony sighed and turned to the gator on her back.
All right, you. Time to give it up.
Apple Bloom carefully bit the egg, and Gummy let go. Did he understand? Apple Bloom paused for a moment as the thought hit, then put the egg down carefully.
Here you go, ma'am. Safe and sound.
The bird just stared, but Apple Bloom didn't have the time to wait for a reaction. She had another baby to bring home.
Let's get you home, Gummy. If I know my gators, I'd say you're hungry.
She left the forest. As she got to the edge, she could have swore she heard the flapping, and a
caw
behind her. Gummy liked this yellow one now. She saved him, and his lunch from the brown thing. Then she carried him. Then she made him give up his lunch. This confused Gummy, but something made him feel that he was supposed to do that. Besides, now he was home, which meant a very tasty dinner.
Welcome home, Gummy!
As soon as they entered, the pink one was in Gummy's face.
Look what I brought home!
Sitting on the table was a giant sweetbread. Sweetbread was one of Gummy's favorites, as the pink one had had it in all of her parties. Basically, a party was when the pink one and the other ones would move around and be loud. Gummy would drink the purple water and eat the sweetbread.
Wow, a cake!
Exclaimed the yellow one.
Did you get that at the Confestival?
Sure did. It's a surprise for Gummy's 1.5-year birthday party, she screamed. Surprise! And then came all of the pink one's friends. They talked loud at Gummy for a while, but then they left him alone, with the sweetbread. He chewed happily on his favorite treat when he caught a glimpse of the yellow one. She was talking to an orange one and a white one, and they were looking excited. The yellow one looked happier than she had the whole day. Then the pink one went to the yellow one.
So, how was Gummy? Did you have fun?
She asked the yellow one.
It was exciting,
replied the yellow one. Exciting!
Exciting,
exclaimed the orange one.
We were bored all day. After y'all left, me and Gummy got to know each other. He's a cool little guy,
said the yellow one.
I know, right? He's so fun. He's like the best pet ever,
the pink one said in her usual fast way. The yellow one looked at Gummy, smiled, and said back to the pink one.
I learned a lot from him. Yeah, he really is the best pet ever.
She blinked one eye at Gummy, and he stared back. Then she started laughing. Gummy didn't know why, but the pink one joined her. These pony things sure were weird. The end.